Welcome to today's Iris session. It's brought to you by BrightRock, provider of the first ever life insurance that changes as your life changes. I'm David O'Sullivan, and today we're here to talk about your money heritage. Whether or not we're taught to be money savvy when we were kids, our families and cultures are very likely to have played a crucial role in how we approach our money matters as adults. In today's conversation, we aim to unpack useful thoughts and tips as we talk about the impact our families and cultures have on our personal finances. Joining me in the studio today is Nicolette Mashile, who's a social entrepreneur, property investor, and speaker in the field of financial literacy, inclusion, and freedom. She's a broadcast media personality. She hosts a youth TV talk show and business radio show. She's also an actress. And as a believer in self-investment, she discusses different topics relating to finance literacy on her Facebook page. Also joining me is Shan Vijendranath, who is a parenting and lifestyle blogger who co-founded the blog You, Baby and I and MomSays, a platform to connect moms to brands. She blogs about her journey through motherhood and the little bumps on the way. She says the aim of You, Baby and I is to share real stories, connect mums to brands, and get the conversation going. And I've no doubt both of them have got a lot to tell us. So Nicolette and Shan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
We could go into so much, but I'm particularly focused on what it is about financial literacy, financial inclusion, and those aspects of your job. I could, of course, talk to you about being an actress, but let's deal with the financial side of things. How big a part of your day-to-day life, day-to-day work is the issue of financial literacy?
Geez, it's become really like my entire life. Every time people have a conversation with me, that's all they want to talk about. It's somehow, I just have absolutely nothing else that interests people other than, Nicolette, I need tips. I see it at the airport, in the clubs, at restaurants. People come to me and they say, okay, so I need tips. I want to buy a house. And I'm like, just wait, can I just do myself today? Can I enjoy myself? So it plays a very huge role. Every single time I'm sitting around at home, I'm thinking, so what video should I be putting up? What kind of conversation should I be starting so that we can, engage in these conversations? But I'm still trying to formalize it as best as possible. So there's a lot that's coming up in terms of creating a proper platform now where people can engage. Because currently it's just on the Facebook page. I mean, it's got great traction, but it's not really as formalized as possible. I'm in negotiations with a financial services provider to assist with the queries because I get over 2,000 inboxes in a day.
Wow. No, you can't deal with
that. And that's my problem because I don't want it to be a non-response.
Yeah, you've got to engage, haven't you?
Yes.
But what I'm encouraged by is the fact that people are financially savvy now, that they are understanding the importance of this. And I think it's something we'll explore now. I know we will. And Shan, for you, I know you're blogging about moms and motherhood, and I've really enjoyed your blog. I know had I been a younger dad and my children were younger, I would have found it rather useful. I did enjoy your last post when you were talking about it's all over now.
Yes.
I've had my last
emotional.
child. Yes, I'm sure. But the issue of finances, how important is it to the people who are reading your blogs?
So I've done quite a few posts around the topic. And I think one of my popular posts is, how moms can get free product samples or freebies when it comes to being pregnant or after you have kids. And that's one of my biggest posts right now because I realized that moms are trying to save where they can.
Yes.
They're using every opportunity to get a freebie or, a coupon or even a card that will allow them to save a little bit. Especially now, me being a mom of 3 kids, I have to worry about that.
Yes.
Because, my last was unexpected. So now it's like, oh, geez, thinking about private school fees and, nappies and everything that comes with a child. It's crazy. So I am trying to focus more on posts that, teaches moms tips, especially now that we come into December holidays where everyone goes crazy.
Yes.
And then, in Jan, it's like,
And then it's school fees in Jan.
Yeah.
and then you really start battling. But, that's an interesting thing you raise about how to get the freebies, get the coupons, how to be smart about the sales, getting the bargains. And I think that was something I learned from my mom, who, while she wasn't spendthrift, she always had a good eye for where can I do a savings. I'm the house husband in my house. My wife's the corporate person in our household. And I find myself always, and I know it's because of my parents, particularly my mother, that I will look to see, where they say buy three, save 10.
Yes,
I'm buying 3. I realize I might be, sucked into the promotional.
Yes, you are.
But I'm looking at the paper towel. If I buy 2 of those versus 2 individually, I'm saving $8 here.
Yes,
but that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And
Quick math.
I learned that.
Yeah.
I learned it from my mom.
It's funny that she says that her most popular blog is the one about coupons. On my page, the most popular video is where we had a huge debate about whether or not I can afford to have children. So I put up a post saying, you know what, I've done my 2018 budget and I still can't afford a child. And I got hammered. People were like, what? You don't need money to have children. I was like, what? Really? And that's and I started realizing that it's really our heritage, our culture, how we are taught in a house. Because there are people who just don't get that you need to financially plan for a child.
Yes,
that it's a financial implication. People were saying on the in some of the comments that were coming through were like, no, you'll find a way, you will adapt. And I was like, no, you can't adapt to private school fees.
Yeah.
Yes,
How do you adapt to now all of a sudden having to pay 50,000 rand? So it's quite it's a coincidence for me, because I always say to people, a child is a financial implication. Whether you love children and you love Jesus, and I do, and I'm like, yes, it's a gift from God, but at the end of the day, money's going to come out of your pocket.
But you're the first person I know who's actually done a budget on a baby without, can I afford to have a baby?
Yeah.
I'm going, can I afford this fancy toy for the kids? Can I afford to go on the holiday? You actually did a budget for a baby.
Which is very clever. I think more parents need to do that, because we forget about the cost during pregnancy. And then if you're having a birth at a private hospital versus a public, what comes in there, the extra costs. I mean, my C-section cost me a big amount.
Yes.
And I didn't realize, because it was the little things, I wasn't clever enough to know that my first was an emergency and I could claim back a certain amount. So if you don't know these things or you don't research, you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
And then when the bill comes, you're like, whoa, I don't expect that.
And the
I didn't
bills never
budget
stop.
that.
They're always coming. You think you
Yes.
paid the doctor, and then now there's the anaesthetist.
Yeah.
It never stops. But where did you learn this kind of financial savviness, Nicolette? Was it something in your family that made you financially astute?
No, I think my dad always used to say, you guys are going to be poor if you don't manage your money properly. You're going to be poor if you don't go to school. So he kind of ingrained this poverty thing in us, that, you need to do a whole lot of things to make sure you don't get there. But he's never been we've never in the family sat down and talked about finances. As a matter of fact, this year my little sister was starting first year, and all of a sudden people acted like they didn't know she was going into first year. And I was like, guys, what did you think was going to happen when she passes matric? She needs to go to school. So they had not adequately financially planned for her to go to university. And I just couldn't understand that my father, a well-educated man, my mom, a well-educated woman, just never got to this point, you know what I mean? And because we are in Johannesburg, so both my elder sister and I in Joburg, there was just this assumption that we would take her up and we would be able to pay for her. There's just an assumption in our families that because you're the older children, you're supposed to just make do. And that's the black tax that we talk about, you know? So I think that for me, it really was a matter of going through a lot of financial strain in my past years and making many mistakes. And then last year I was like, actually, I'm about to leave my job now, my corporate job. And I need to understand that money is not going to be secure. It's not going to be coming in every month. I need to become now financially savvy and see where do I need to save, because I no longer have, your retirement plan.
Yes.
And I need to create my own retirement plan. And that was the reason why I started researching stuff. I mean, I always say to people, the stuff that I put up on my Facebook page, it's nothing new. Really. The only thing that's new is the fact that I add on my experiences. So I tell the stories through my experiences. But everything else that is there, you can Google it. You will find it. But the problem is people don't want to do that.
But now, you can learn it all from Google, but what gives you the instinct to know? Did your parents teach you financial rigidity? I mean, you've got your dad saying, if you're going to be poor if you don't do this, poor if you don't do that. But is that the driving force for you to be financially disciplined?
I think it's fear.
Oh, really?
I think my dad instilled a poverty fear in us. And he said, if you don't do certain things a certain way, you will be poor. And you will then carry the poverty into the next generation, which means that cycle will never break. I think that was the biggest thing. But other than that is really losing money. Gosh, you lose so much money if you don't know what you're doing.
Geez, and my family's the opposite. I mean, we the type of people, if you have money, you'll just spend it and live life. Like,
Fun.
Yeah, so if I want to eat something, I'll eat it today, not thinking about tomorrow. So it was very different with me growing up because, being around everyone that lives in the moment, If you have money, you spend, and if you don't have, then you just keep quiet.
So is it a case of the beginning of the month or the first part of the month is always it's feast, and the latter part of the month's
you
famine?
slowly turn down. And then I met my husband, who is the opposite of my family. He's the person that, thinks about 10 years from now. But believe it or not, he quit his day job. He was an engineer, so he quit that. And my day job is blogging, and we're both in startups. So being in startups with 3 kids is absolutely crazy. And I've taught myself on how to save and, how to spend more wisely, especially since we travel a lot. I mean, last year we were in New York for 3 months, and that was ridiculous when it came to the cost. So it did put me in a situation, because then when I came back, I realized I'm pregnant. I was like, whoa!
Fun 3 months.
But yeah, so I had to learn myself. I'm still learning, and sometimes I'm telling my mom, "Nah, you need to save that money. You need to think about later."
So anything that you were taught as a child, or as part of your heritage growing up, you pushed to one side, have you?
Yes, yeah. I mean, they say Indian people are good at saving and, with bargains and all that. But I think it's just more of each family and how you're taught with money. And as I said, my family is just the opposite of hers.
So I'm presuming on your blog you'll say to prospective mums and mums who are planning, who are maybe taking Nicolette's advice and budgeting for the baby, this whole thing of live the moment, it's not really a great way of doing things.
Yeah, not, especially if you have more than one kid and you want to give them the best, send them to private school, or even when they go to the shop and say, "Oh, mommy, I want this or that." My daughter already has a list for Santa. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh Lord, where's this money going to come from?
I don't know if these things are cultural divides, because I think that whether you're white, black, Indian, you will have elements of, there will be some people who will live for the moment, spend. Then there are those who are much more financially savvy, who will plan, because that's the way they were brought up. I mean, I come from a family where my father always drilled into me, start saving now for your retirement. And when you're 18 years old, it's the last thing you want to do.
Yes.
But then I had a bunch of mates who finished school and went straight into work in insurance without having any postgraduate or tertiary education. And then they'd come knocking on the door, please buy an insurance policy. So when I was in my 30s and buying a house and needing extra money, I suddenly realized that all these rats and mice policies, oh my goodness, did they stand me in good stead? I always thank my father for making me do that.
I think it's a case of the haves and the have-nots. I remember having a conversation with these high school students talking about financial education, financial literacy, and said, so we're going to come into your school, we're going to teach you about money. And they looked at me and they're like, okay, but we don't have money. So how are you going to teach us about money we don't have? So I don't think it's a racial thing. I think whether it's about your family. If you've got a little bit of money, you do teach your children. Then there are families that really just don't have anything. So they don't feel they have anything to teach. And I think that is the problem, is that, some families just make do with what they currently have. And the conversation about money is really taboo, and they don't talk about it because it either makes them very upset or it's just, it kind of shines a light on the fact that mom and dad really don't have and cannot do much for us. But what I found is that, there is, though, a growing up in the wrong mentality financially. And I'll give you an example. You're walking around in your family and your mom is avoiding all the private calls. And then when you ask her why you're avoiding private calls, she says something like, everybody's got debt. We need to stop that. It's not correct. Or let's say, for instance, she goes, your brother needs to go to the university next year. Then somebody in the family says, no, but Nicolette can go and get a loan. Her credit record is still clear. It's not okay to say things like that, because children grow up hearing those things. There's a saying actually in Vernac, that's "Koloto ke bophelo," loosely translated as "debt is life." And what? That's not okay.
No, it isn't. For me, there's good debt and there's bad debt.
Exactly. Yes.
And I think that is addressing is the bad debt. Bad debt's going to be with us. So these are the people who are going to have the Fushini card and the Edgar's card and all the various cards which are maxed out, and then you can't service that debt. Yes. That's the bad debt to get. But if it's a mortgage, that's pretty good debt to have, because at least there's something there, a house, you're living in an actual house. But were you, as youngsters growing up, were you taught about debt? Was anything like that instilled in you?
For me, it was always the bad debt. Because if I look at it, my parents never took out a home loan to build our house or buy a house. So, and that's other thing that makes it so difficult. When I wanted to go buy my first house, I had no one to go to. My dad he's never had the experience of doing it. He might understand that you need to invest in property, but he's never done it. So I've got no point of reference, to a point where I actually lost 125,000 Rand in my first purchase, because I didn't know that once you sign the OTP and the suspensive clause gets qualified, you have to buy it. So I try to pull out. And I mean, I've read a story about, what's his name, the soccer player. He's now at Sundowns, short guy, whatever his name is. He did exactly the same thing. 82,000 Rand down the road, they were like, listen, you can't just pull out. You're going to now pay for the
Once you've signed that offer to purchase,
you've signed it.
You're in.
If there's a bank that says we're willing to give you the loan, you are in. So I think it's really, for me, it's my parents, when we spoke about debt in the family, it was always the bad debt. It was always the unsecured home loan, personal loans. You know, African Bank has been the biggest, problem in most families. And you see your parents queuing at African Bank, you're like, well, this is obviously normal. So we grow up understanding that you can borrow money. If you don't have, you just go to the bank and the bank is going to give you money. And we don't know the cost of it either. We don't understand the cost of borrowing.
Rate.
No.
What's the return?
You're just excited when the home loan, the personal loan gets approved. You're like, yes, we've got money.
And now we can spend it.
Yes.
And when that's dried up, well, we'll find somebody else to give us a loan. And that's when the bad credit ratings come, and suddenly that avenue to finances is dried up. Shan, for you?
I think I also had to learn on my own, because we just know bad debt. I mean, if you think about a house, you also feel like, oh, you need to go to the bank and find out if you can get a loan approved for a certain amount. And me with business, a lot of people say, why don't you just go to the bank and get a loan, and build your business there? And my husband's like, no, we're not going to do that, because that is not the debt we need, and we'll do it the right way. So at the moment, we are in the startup industry, meaning we are pitching to investors, attending events, and trying to find the investor that's, willing to put something in our idea without having that debt that we need to pay for, that we can't afford to pay for right now.
But it's an interesting perspective, Shan, that you've got, because you are obviously quite astute now in understanding the dangers, the perils of falling into bad debt and going the investor route rather. But you're coming from a background where these things weren't instilled in you. This is not instinctive thinking here. This is learned thinking. Where do you learn that?
I have to thank my husband for that.
But that's great.
Because, as I told you earlier, we have a 10-year age gap. So I think that helped a bit, because, he knows more about life and things like this, buying cars, where when I met him, I was like, no, I just buy all that, or I'd go to the shop and just buy, or withdraw cash all the time, not thinking how much it's going to cost me to withdraw the cash, or all those little amounts that add up in the bank statement, where he would think, and it'll be like, hang on, you shouldn't buy this because of this reason. And every day I'm learning from him, because he's the one person that really thinks about saving, or he would sit with the bank statement and say, this month we can't spend more than 3,000 or 5,000 on this, because we're going to have problems next month. So because of him, I've learned to save more, and now I'm this person that, I don't know if it's a good thing to look at sale papers or coupons or think about Black Friday. But I sit with papers all the time, or I Google to see where I can get the best sale or best deal. Because I have to, especially with what I'm doing right now, I have to think about next month, next year, and now with private school.
So has this now become an instinctive way of thinking about it?
Yes, I have, and I'm trying to push that into my family. So every time they want to spend, I'm like, hang on, you need to think about this. So why don't you save this money and, later on? Because a lot of them don't even have medical aid in my family. It was like a big thing, as in, if I go back, I'm formerly from Durban, and if I go back to my hometown, a lot of them is like, what's medical aid? Why do I need it? When there's a government hospital, and they do the same thing for me. We're here in Johannesburg, we realized how important having a good medical aid is.
You just want to experience one state hospital in Gauteng, you realize you do
so
want
so I pushed my mom on that, and I told her, you need to take out medical aid, which she's on now. She's very grateful for. But I mean, it's little things like that I'm educating my family on how to save. And I'm learning from my husband, so
Well, it's a good way to learn. And now I'd imagine that you're up to speed, and you are clearly thinking now independently. You're not having to defer to your husband and saying, is my instinct correct? Do you feel you've got the instinct now?
I feel like every day I'm getting better at it. I'm learning myself. I think also being an entrepreneur, you just have to learn. You put in a corner where you just have to know what's around you, what's happening. And a lot of my work is also international, so I'm always looking at the dollar rate to see
So
what's
you're one of
happening.
those people who needs to know that.
I have to know.
I'm always at the end of every news bulletin, the rand dollar, and I say to the newsreaders, why do we keep saying that on the radio?
It's for people like
Shan.
me.
That's why we're doing it. But Nicolette, what I find impressive about you, given that having a look at what you write about with financial literacy, it seems almost instinctive, but you too come from a background, Shan, where you learned all the bad habits, didn't you?
Yes. No, I definitely went through the bad habits first. And I think the craziest thing is that you go through the bad habits, you make the mistake, you stop, you realize, okay, I'm making the mistakes, and then you try change them, and then maybe you fix one or two things, but you go back again to making the bad mistakes. And I think that's the thing about finances, is that you almost have to, I always say to people, take one thing at a time and try fix one thing at a time. Because some of us, we try fix a whole lot of things, but it doesn't really work out. People talk about diversification of your investments, and everybody's now trying to diversify their investments because it's the in thing right now, you know. But the reality is that if you do not have your own financial goals on a piece of paper and know exactly where you want to go, you're going to jump on every single trend. People are jumping on cryptocurrency right now, Bitcoin.
Yes,
They jumped on Triple M when it came out. They jumped on Forex trading. You know, people want to jump on everything because, unfortunately, people are so desperate, David. It's so scary how desperate people are.
Yeah.
I have people sending me emails saying, Nicolette, they will first write out their whole story about where their finances are and say, I need to make money. Please tell me how.
That's the popular question in the mom groups. How can I make extra money, or what can I do from home, you know, to make money here and there?
And because you're the entrepreneur, we're going to you. It's a good idea.
Yeah, and it's quite sad because I chat to some of my readers, and I recently put out a post on my Facebook page saying, what's on your wish list for Christmas? Because I want to try and fulfill some, you know, wishes. And one of them is like, I just want a summer dress. And that broke my heart. I'm like, to not be able to get afford a summer dress, and someone's like, I just want to paint my house, the front of my house. I looked at that post, and afterwards I went to my mom and I'm like, I feel like crying, because this is just so sad, and sometimes we don't realize what we have. And you know, with my kids, my daughter's kind of spoiled because, you know, the job that I am, she gets the best of things. So she doesn't understand what's not having something, you know, and every time the bell rings, she's like, that's for me, I'm getting a new toy, I'm getting that. So I'm trying to bring her down to earth and make her realize that, you know, not every child has that. And sometimes just showing off or comparing with other kids is not okay. So I'm teaching her how to, you know, to be more money savvy, and also just giving her like 5 rand. I was like, you do chores, you will get this, and you have a little piggy bank and you save, and you'll see end of the year you can buy something in your own, and you're going to be so proud of it. Because I remember the first time I purchased something with my money, I was so excited. That feeling is just amazing. Even today, if I make money and I just buy a dress, I was like, I did it on my own money. And you know, I don't have debt with that, so.
But that's a wonderful thing to do for your child, because you're teaching them all the best aspects of financial literacy and doing it in a fun way as well. It's a form of empowerment as well. You can do this. I always feel bad when I'm saying to my kids, feed the dogs, because I used to hate doing the chores, but I always got, and they do too, there's always a reward. And the piggy bank stacks up. So prior to them getting, well, my little guy's still unaware of the value of money. He's getting there fast, I've got to say. My older one, though, is understanding it. So previously it was a star on a chart, and when the chart's filled up, you get a gift. And now it's pocket money, but they have to earn it, and hopefully in that way. But of course, they're understanding what 1,000 rand is and what 10 rand is. I'm afraid I'm losing. Well, my 13-year-old gets, my 6-year-old still thinks, that Lego, it's only 10 rand. No, it's 1,000 rand. He just sees the 1 and the 0. But for financial literacy, when people are, I'm hoping, Nicolette, that people are also asking questions. How do I learn to be financially savvy? Not just saying, I want to make money. What do I need to do? And teaching your children from an early age, that's part of the process. Well, you need still to learn. Make sure they are learning.
I think we currently developing a program for children, and the best thing that we realized, we consulting with a few guys from the States, and the best thing that one guy said is, you need to teach children from a young age up to adults, they need to develop a relationship with money and understand money, and they need to explain to you, what does money mean to them? Is it access? Is it attaching some sort of value? Is it freedom? What does money actually say to you? When you sit and you're like explaining to somebody what money is to you, how do they explain it? That's when you'll start understanding where people actually are in their mindset and how then for you to be able to move forward. People will say to me, Nicolette, what books are you reading? And I'm like, I can give you all the books in the world.
Yeah.
You can read all the books in the world, but if you, I mean, we talk about soccer players and we talk about how they, you know, soccer players, South African artists, how they get all this money, go and rent out Lamborghinis, rent out these penthouses, and then they just, when the money dries up, it really dries up.
Yeah, that's right.
You're finding them on the streets. And it's not as if those people don't know. I can tell you for a fact, it's not that they don't know, but it's what they attach to money. You know, obviously because we've also been previously disadvantaged, we've got a status that we're attaching to money. You know, if you look like, we always, and I'm going to sound very controversial now, but we always talk about how white people will live in this big, massive house, but will drive a modest car. And for us, it's the other way around. You live in this little house, but yet you are driving this luxury car. You know, but only to prove to people that I've made it.
Yes, that's the thing. If you have fancy things, then people think you've made it. Like, you know, or if you're doing well, has a new car, then where's the new house? Because that's the next step. I think also people are so used to seeing card all the time that they forget the value in that card. Because my daughter just sees me swiping all the time.
She's just like, wow, that's the card that makes things happen.
Mommy, there's money in that card. So, you know, you can just swipe it anytime and buy me what I want. I'm like, but where is the money coming from?
That's
it's
right.
coming from somewhere. So that's why I'm starting to teach her about coins and actual notes, so that she learns the value of that and not just card all the time. And that's where people get excited, because if you have a credit card, I can just go swipe.
That's right.
And you know, we'll think about the consequences later on. But for now, I'm just going to swipe. And that's what happens in December. People just swipe.
Yeah, that's right. Not appreciating there's an interest that accrues and your
yes.
repayments are going to be high. And if you start doing the maths, you realize just how much.
And I mean, now you can buy food on credit, which is so scary. I don't want to even think what's going to happen in December.
No, they're going to buy food, and then we've got a non-payment culture in this country. You can just buy and disappear after that. But you know what? The other thing that I always say to people that we don't want to confront is honesty. People are not honest about their finances. They're not honest about how money makes them feel. So a person will, now they're going to get their bonuses, it's December, they're going to get their bonuses and they're going to go and splurge. Knowing at the back of their head that January is coming. No one is confused about how the calendar works. Everyone knows January is coming, and January is a tough month. Even if you don't have children, you've got family members that might ask you for a loan, you've got certain things that might pop up, you might be moving, your lease might come to the end. So there's a whole lot of things that people understand, but the thing is, it's easier if I wish it away and pretend like it doesn't exist. I've got friends who come to me and say, okay, I've got debt and I want to get rid of my debt. Then I say to them, okay, you need to now honestly go and download your bank statement and use 3 different colors and color code all the stuff that you know that you don't have to be paying for every month. You don't need to be using money. And then they like to me, I don't really want to do that. And I'm like, that's the problem. You're not confronting the actual problem. You walk into one of the Johannesburg clubs, you want to sit down. They say to you, for you to be able to sit down, you have to buy a bottle. Now, a bottle in a club is 1.8. In the shop, it's 200.
Yeah, that's right.
Why are you doing that?
Yes.
But your emotions, now it's like, now I can't sit down. Everyone's watching me. Everyone knows I've got money. I'm going to buy this. But you end up, I mean, how stupid must you be? So I think for us, and I always say when people say, how do I get financially safe? I say, confront how you feel about money. Be honest with yourself. People do budgets. The most beautiful budgets in the world. But they are impractical.
Well, I think, and it's almost as if we've gone full circle, because you started talking about budgeting. And I think ending with budgeting, proper budgeting and proper execution of your budget are the critical things. Because I do want to end with some advice for people. And how do you change your thinking of finances in order to live a comfortable lifestyle, in order to make your money work for you? And I suppose, Nicolette, one of the first things you're going to tell me is this proper budgeting. But it's not just doing the budget and there, it's a beautiful document, put it away now and then go to the club. Look at it and make it work for you. That'll be one piece of advice I'd imagine from you.
Definitely. I think budgeting is important. Be honest in your budget. Make it a practical budget. It's also not smart to have an impractical budget where you're squeezing yourself and you know you love going out and eating out. Find a way in which you can allocate enough money for you going out and eating out so that you don't end up spending a little bit more and saying, no, but it's just 300 Rand more. Because it's not going to just be 300 Rand more. It's going to be 800 Rand more. So I think the really most important is be honest about your finances. Honest about what you can afford. Stop living beyond your means, guys. To try and impress people who don't care, who are also going through financial issues.
Shan, you got any other advice you'd like to add to that?
She summed it up the best. But I mean, I also do, I do a spreadsheet because of what I do. And I normally just budget from there. Like almost every week I'm on my spreadsheet, I'm calculating and seeing, what's it costing me to run the house, how much do I actually need to live comfortable, and also with going out. We love going out and eating out. So I try and budget more for, that. By doing that, I'm like, I need to make certain amount of money this month in order to go to this restaurant or have sushi when we want. Yeah. So yeah, she summed it up beautifully.
Could you imagine yourself 20 years ago poring over a spreadsheet?
No, never thought about it. But yeah, I'm very happy that I'm doing it now. I mean, I think because my daughter's only 5 and she's seen what I'm doing, I'm starting at the right age with her, and hopefully my sons will catch up with that.
And hopefully you will also instill in your children this. I don't know if we're going to get 10-year-olds poring over spreadsheets, but it's not going to be a foreign concept for them when they grow up.
Yeah, I'm sure by technology then, it's going to be so much, it'll be so much easier to get that bank statement color-coded.
Not when you're the first job and all of a sudden you're confronted with 20,000 Rand in your account. You've never seen 20,000 Rand.
Yeah.
But if you grow up understanding money, you now start to have a better understanding.
People just get excited when they see those zeros.
And I mean, you've never driven a Mercedes-Benz. Now somebody must tell you can't drive one. But when you look at your funds, you think, I can afford it.
I can afford it. Can't afford to do anything else.
Yes, and that's the problem that we don't think of, is that in a car, you are now stuck in a 5-year payment plan. What happens if in the next 2 years, you find out you're pregnant?
Yes.
And now all of a sudden, it's a new financial implication. Now your entire disposable income is going to servicing a debt of a car. Yeah, so those are the things that we need to think of.
And then you'll have to get a 4x4 if you have 3 kids.
That's right.
Exactly.
And all those nappies. Nappies. More and more nappies. That's the expense I wasn't ready for. How can we still be buying nappies? How much is this child going through?
Cloth diapers. Those diapers.
Oh, I should have known about that, shouldn't I? Now, how do people access your information? Nicolette, people want to get your financial literacy input. Where do they go? How do they find you?
So I am on Facebook. It's Financial Literacy with Nicolette Mashile, but I'm also on my website. It's www.nicolettem.com.
These are very easy.
Very easy.
Okay.
Yes.
And I have the hard ones.
Well, yours is You, Baby, and I. So
yes, but people often mistake me as Baby, You, I. But yes, it's
we'll do it in the order of importance, or in order of age, I suppose.
So yeah, I mean, my website is youbabyandi.com, and then I'm YouBabyAndi on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Well, I think that as a result of this conversation, people should be going to your sites as recommended reading, because this has been invaluable advice. Nicolette, Shan, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I really did appreciate all your inputs. Thank you so much. I hope that has given you plenty of food for thought. And thank you very much for joining us on this Iris session. I'm David O'Sullivan. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.